Excuse me, seeing the time, 6:05, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming tonight. First on the agenda, secretary report for the minutes for the February meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Secretary's report. Thank you. Now, treasurer's report.
Okay, in our main checking account, we have $7,803.55. In our Robert Smith Fund, which we use for all of our donations and charitable works to the village here, we have $17,549.31 in our money market fund accounts, our savings account, which we have in a Vanguard money market fund earning 4%. $2,923.11. So all told, to the three accounts, it's about $28,000. So there's no bills, nothing outstanding, but nothing happens this time of year anyway. So the bills and everything and the money coming in will be coming soon. So that's it.
Great. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Seeing none, get a motion to accept. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's approved. Now, Cindy, we get the BPA.
And I'm filling in for Gail Nightingale. The annual Chocolate Fest was very successful. Thanks to the Austral Library for sponsoring it. It was very well attended. Our February steering committee meeting, we voted Cindy Cotton as vice chairman of the OBPA steering committee. Bobby Cox has stepped down from that position. This took effect immediately until our annual meeting in June. Our winter cocktail party was held last week at 5 Bay Bistro, sponsored by Austral Jewelers and Fete Among the Flowers. It was a very successful event, and we thank 5 Bays for hosting it. We are not holding an OBPA meeting in March. The cocktail party was held as a replacement meeting. Plans are being made for the spring into summer sidewalk sales on June 7th in hopes of helping our retail shops start off to a successful summer. We have applied to the town for the tourism grant, the printing of our village directory maps. Last year we received $500. We feel it is a very important way to advertise our village and all the events sponsored by OVA and OBPA. Can we agree that August 13th, 2025 at 7 p.m. for the date of the OV annual meeting to be listed on this directory?
OVA.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Our OBPA annual breakfast meeting will be held June 3rd and everyone will be there, and Village Day on Saturday 19th. The application for our Village Day parade permit has been submitted to the town. The theme of the parade will be the garden party. Everyone is welcome to participate. Regarding OVA, OBPA $1,500 scholarship, any high school senior that lives in Austral or a child of an OBPA member is eligible to apply. Applications are available at all the local high schools. Respectfully submitted by Gail Nightingale, OBPA chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
May I make a comment? Sure. Congratulations on your elevation, Cindy Cotton. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Cindy. Any questions on? Next, town council report, John.
The most important thing is, you're all probably watching this past Thursday's meeting, where the housing production plan was put forward to the town council from the planning board. I put a motion to postpone it indefinitely, and after I did that, the sponsor of the actual item removed the item and took it off the agenda. So what's going to happen is that the housing production plan, which has numerous infirmities, according to myself and a number of others, it's going to go back to the planning board, planning department, not the board, and the planning director is a new fellow named Jim Cutler, and he's been here about a year, and he took over from the previous director, who was mainly behind this housing production plan with Cape Cod Commission. So it was something that was left over, and it wasn't something that was going to work both for our village and for the town, we believe. And it was overwhelmingly desire to for a major rewrite. So that was a good thing, because a lot of what was in there was, for example, was the changing zoning in all the villages, and also bringing the same type of form-based zoning, which they're doing in downtown. Yeah, it's right. They're going to do form-based zoning right in all the villages by right. So that would have really changed the character of this village. And there were 3 stories in Ossiville at this point, and also multi-family by right within a half mile of all the villages. So all of, in our village, a half mile, if you go from the center where the flagpole is, Kim and Grover would include almost all the neighborhoods that are close by. Most of those are duplexes or triplexes if they changed hands for it to investors. And many of those, if not all, would be short-term rentals. So I think that's something we didn't want to see. So one of the things we will be bringing up is common sense regulations and short-term rentals that we've talked about for years here. And I think that'll do something to help us with our affordable housing problems, because that's sort of exacerbating the problem. The other thing you should keep in mind, the first reading for putting Article 97 protections on the end of Weano Avenue, which is called, well, a lot of people refer to it as the baby beach down there. That has been surveyed, and the town lawyers have put together the rationale for putting that into Article 97 protections, like Dowsett Beach had, and a number of other places. So we're looking for that. That's going to be an item coming tomorrow, no, Thursday, but it'll only be for a first reading, so it's not a vote. The vote will be on March 20th for that. And like I say, I don't know if you see this, but this is the area they surveyed it off. That includes the beach and the little area right above it where you come in there. So,
so where people park, John?
Where people park in that area, all the way down to the water, and that is one thing that has been. Avangrid has pointed out that may be a possible landing spot in the future if, in addition to Dowses or instead of Dowses, and do the same things come up to a village. And that piece of property, according to the town lawyers, probably should have Article 97 protections, and you could go before a court or something, and they would say, yeah, this is a use that's been over 100 years, and that's what for public use, a public bathing beach, and that's sort of what they use for the Article 97 criteria. But they informed me that that could also be argued on the other way, and it's sort of a little bit vague. So this is actually saying directly what we believe it should be, and voting it in. I believe we'll have enough votes to pass that come 20. So if anybody wants to write some letters, I just saw some letters coming in to the town council about going ahead with that. When we voted on Dowses Beach to keep that from being developed, it was a unanimous vote by the council. So I think this would be something, maybe not unanimous, but should be unanimous or close. I don't think we have to fight for this one. So that's the other thing we got to keep in mind. So we're going to take the housing production plan and take it back to the drawing board and make it more palatable to people who live here. It's been more like a document that's been pushed down from the regional Cape Cod Commission down through our planning board, and then now through the council. And it was something that was very controversial for many councilors, and they see it also as an issue in their positions. So I think that would be something that we can get on and make it document to actually push the growth ideas a little bit away from the growth everywhere, buildings everywhere, and more targeted towards the affordable need, because we're going to come to a point where we're going to have a glut of market rate housing if we don't already have one. There's 1,000 units in the pipeline right now for that. So I think we already got 300 or 400 will be built. So it seems like we'll get a little ahead of ourselves. Most of those aren't affordable. We have 10% or less units that are affordable. So we're never going to get to a 10% goal that the state has for every town. If the denominator keeps getting very much larger, the numerator stays very small. So I think we'll make some progress on that if we change it up. So that's what. Any questions?
Ready to work on it?
Yeah.
One of my big things that I've been big for our village for a long time is that threat of high density that's was with the previous council. That's not what brings people here.
On the previous plan
I believe it's planning park director,
as well.
so luckily she's found greener pastures.
I have two questions.
Sure.
If I may, Pete?
Sure. Oh, yeah,
I go to Paul, sorry.
See you tonight.
One of those nights.
So, the first one is about Baby Beach. Is there a deeded history with Baby Beach like there is with Douses, where, you know, it said the town will acquire it for the purpose of a bathing beach? That really strengthens Article 97 protections when the purpose for acquisition is on the deed. That's my first question. I don't know. When did the town acquire it?
That let's see, it's great, in the late 1800s, the Weano Avenue was laid out in Nantucket Sound. And it's been a portion of a public way between Seaview and the inside of Sound, as used as town landing and has been referred to as a part of the way to water for generations. This area has been used for recreational purposes and has provided public access to the beach, public tidelands, and Nantucket Sound for recreational boating, swimming, fishing, and otherwise exercising permissible public trust rights. These uses of the town landing are consistent with those protected under Article 97 of the Amendments to the State Constitution.
So there's a good documented history.
Yeah, and I will read a little bit more because I think it's important.
Sure.
Residents and others familiar with the town landing and its historic uses may have assumed the area was protected already in Article 97. The legal department was asked whether the town landing is protected already under her 97, and if not, what steps would be required to provide that protection. And the important paragraph is: following review, the legal department found that these historic uses are of the type that would qualify protection under 97. However, while one could argue that the area might be protected already based on its historic use, we also believe an argument could be made that the town may not have taken the appropriate action to dedicate this area to Article 97 protection in a manner that court opinions would recognize as sufficient. So this is action by our now council to make that, to resolve that issue.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's all in the writing.
There's history there, that's important.
Instead, the order would not change the town's property interest in the town landing. Instead, the order would recognize and confirm the longstanding recreational uses of the town landing and dedicate the area to those purposes of protection. Yes. So they did a good job on this. Tom LaRosa did this one, and he's been working on it for a while because I've been asking for quite a while. We get a lot of people down, especially down in Weano, asking about it. So I've been pestering him for a long time. Finally decided I got it.
The fact that they're terming it a landing, town landing, is there any history? People have been able to, find where, I don't know, salt boats or fish boats came in there and there was a pier there that they landed.
I think, Doc, there was a pier there at one point that they used to, the sailboats used to come up to it, like way back.
Yeah, well, the Weano Yacht Club used to have a pier there.
That could be.
You got the TD Bank, in Centerville.
Yeah.
Outside, there's a very big mural of that walk. I don't know if that was more over by the Weano Club or at that area at the end of the Weano Avenue.
Yeah, it is confusing because it's not a boat landing now.
No,
Like, landing at the end of Bay Street, which is boat landing. The end of Weano is not, there's no boat ramps there.
No, but they could have been in the 1800s before automobiles.
Yeah.
This is confusing.
Yeah, there used to be a walk of some kind that they used to run the Weano Yacht Club races off of, but I don't know if it was over at the Weano Club or where it was exactly.
Yeah,
But it was right in that area.
there was still a lot of mooring piles there when I was a kid. I don't know if there still are, but
Oh, really?
broken on remnants of pier that was there.
Somebody launched a car off of there about 20
Hey.
years ago.
You remember his name?
Why make the turn? They
Yeah,
missed the corner.
Osterville Airport, isn't
So,
no, yeah, I had a second one.
One comment,
Oh.
so it may be a town landing, but there are lots of other town landings that don't have a pier. You know, so for example, somebody could take a kayak down the stairs and launch it from there, so it's just like a lot of the other town landings that we have. It's a little steeper and so forth, but same functionality. I don't think you need a pier to consider it being a town landing.
So my second question, I'm wondering if there's any sense among the counselors, John, I don't know if you could share this, that Barnstable seems to be, everyone's looking at it to take the brunt of this housing issue when the entire Cape, you know, should be sharing the load about providing housing to the people who want to live here and work here and make it affordable. So it just seems that Hyannis is being so overbuilt. And you know, and then they want to spread that, some people want to spread that to all the other villages. And I just think Barnstable has had up to here, so many people have had enough. This is too much of the burden of housing on Cape Cod. I don't know if you want to
I
comment.
think that's coming to a head. A number of the Hyannis counselors have said this to me in public. That they think, you know, this is enough, we're oversaturated, especially from Hyannis. Excuse me, and I don't blame them. Some have said, no, we need to stretch it out to the other villages and that kind of stuff, but I think recently the governor came out with a report on housing and described all the towns in Massachusetts and the regions and how much housing they needed to get up to what she believed was the housing that was necessary for us. Turns out Cape is less than 2.5%, and there's a clause in that statement or in that whatever the statement the study that came out and said even that 2.5%, if we change the way we used housing here that we're using it now, that would probably, you know, finish up for us in that respect. Now I had one of the leading advocates for housing saying, "Oh, don't take that as this. You know, we don't want to, you know, say no more housing." But we've really come to the point where with what's in the pipeline. I said there's like 1,000 units in the pipeline that it's getting and the vast majority of them being rental at market rate, and all those rentals are over the average of a person who makes a decent living here that would be a fit. So, and I'm not just talking affordable, 80% of AMI or 100% of AMI, just the average Joe making $70,000 a year. We have to talk about these things. So. I see that coming. I think it's starting to, the ball's starting to roll is that way that we've got too much going on here. Now, I don't know what, and of course, this comes from the previous council, the previous director of planning. That was basically just build everything. It was our idea. Okay, so we're still getting we're coming into what they've had planned and put forward. Okay, so I think going forward, I don't see there's a lot of, as people see these going up, there's a lot of taste for continuing that. I think we've come to a point where we've got water problems, and people tell you about that, and other things that I think we get close to build out at this point. And I cannot see 4 stories in Patuit or Osterville and that kind of stuff. So it's getting to be a point. Well, some of the councilors are, you know, angry. They well, a little bit perturbed about it's all going to Hyannis. They say, "Well, we should have some over there and over your village and stuff." But it's a question of we're coming to a point where what we should be building is only affordable and meet those needs if necessary. And those don't require having 3 stories through all the villages. Don't require having change of zoning around the villages to a half mile. It's more like you got a piece of property here, we can put 10 units here, let's do that and do it other places. I think the taste for this large scale stuff is waning very quickly.
I heard on the radio that the town administration had asked the residents of Barnstable to restrict water use because the recharge to the aquifer is way behind schedule this year. And I'm like, but we're gonna build, 1,300 more apartments. There's a real disconnect here in terms of our resources, our natural resources, and what some people want to do. And I have to tell you the truth, I really feel bad for a lot of people who live in Hyannis at this point.
Is it all about tax base? I mean, we're the planning department trying to generate revenue? Like,
I think,
growth.
well, I think what it comes down to is tax base. I think they say, well, we need housing, we need all this sort of stuff. Well, we're gonna be saturated. I think what they weren't going to say is that the tax base is too important. And that's what drove, I think, without being said with the council. So I do feel that it's coming to saturation. And so.
Circling back to can you remind me quickly, or us, that Article 97, that's not permanent protection, or is it?
Supposed to be. It's supposed to be, but as if anybody was paying attention with the governor, she's trying to water those down as much as possible because of these possible landings now, or maybe 4 years from now, or whatever.
Bill's
trying to say something.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, yeah.
No, Bill's trying to say something.
Oh, wait, go ahead, Bill.
I just happen to have in my desk drawer here something that this is the original landing at the Wiano Yacht Club. That's the red onion of the original yacht club building that you can see there. If it's
Where can you tell where Wiano Ave is?
yeah, Wiano Avenue is right up where you see the little V in the on the, excuse me, let me just see.
Landscape, yes.
Is that the yacht club though, or the family?
That's the original yacht club. It was called the Red Onion. And Paul Chesbrough explained to me how that building was moved down. It's still existing. It was put on an existing building. He has the history of that. So it was really quite a substantial pier, as you can see. If I can hold it correctly. Just thought that'd be a minor interest.
Thank you, Bill. That was great. Okay, any other questions for John? John, thank you. I could actually have a quick.
Well, I'm sorry, just gonna say the flip side of what you just asked about the taxation and the tax base. This town should be a little careful about the number of non-profits. I see one thing after another that's being bought up and changed to like whatever, churches, organizations, but there are a lot of nonprofits that are taking a lot of tax basis off the books in this town, which is going to go back to haunt us. I don't know if there's anything to really do about it. The church wants to expand or buy something or set up this, set up that, but there's a tremendous number of nonprofits in this town that are eating up our tax base.
Yeah, I think that's also been discussed as something we should look at, and so we'll have to see about that. The other thing is there was a decision or came down recently. I know what the gist of it is. I can't remember who said it, what state office sent it down. But the CWMP is counting on funds that come, and there's a fund that does it every year. Each town can put in for, I think, up to $50 million and get that a low interest rate to help with the sewage plants. Well, there was just an announcement from from the state offices that said we're going to cut that in half, and that you can only apply for for half of what you applied for before. Now, our town manager has called that department and talked to them, because all of our numbers and our projections are taking those numbers into those funds into account. And if it gets cut by a significant degree, like maybe they're speaking, then that almost puts that may not be able to continue doing our sewage plans. Okay, it doesn't make any sense for the state to do so, but they may have other motives. I'm not sure what it would be. So that's something to keep an eye on. is that, and after our 2027 budget, the town finance director said that's when we will have to start looking for a 2.5 override. Because we're financed up to that point with what is going on now with the sewage plants now. But the second and third phases are going to be, they're going to be coming to the citizens for an override of their tax bills. So that could be a significant issue coming up. So I don't know if it's, the manager was saying, it's wonder if it's a mistake. Talked to somebody in the office that put it out and said, hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
You know what the office
Yeah.
was? Yeah. And so that's something that could really put wrench in the gears of this entire sewering the Cape, which we need to do, obviously, for the waters we have here. And it seemed the state would be very short-sighted if they went that direction.
They're blaming the loss of federal funding.
Yeah. Okay. So,
When's that one?
well, that was just back and forth. I don't know if they've decided on that, or they're just throwing it out to let you know, or whining. We don't know quite yet, but that'll be something to keep an eye on as we go forward. That would really put a kibosh at any new development or any further development if that's the case, because we just don't have a place to put it. So.
John, can I just ask one question? When you were talking about Hyannis and their tax base,
It's all our tax base. Yeah.
Okay, but do you think if there mismanagement in that village of the tax monies, like why are they so strapped?
No, it's just the Hyannis, it's Barnstable. So any taxes that are paid by new developments there is all in our pot. So it's the same pot in ours.
Okay.
It's not village per village.
Okay.
So, and I've also heard that a number of these are projects that are already open have vacancy rates of 10 to 13% vacancy rate, which is fairly high. So if that's already the case, we get 700 more units on it. You know, it may go back to the 1980s where we had the collapse in the prices of those units. And I don't know if they could, you know, they could service their debts. So it's something to keep in mind. We've just grown, so we're just putting so much into the pipeline. And that was the other council. Prove everything, bring it all in, and we need housing. And the more housing we build, whether it's affordable market rate, that will just add to the stock, and you know, should have said itself. So it's a little concerning to keep an eye on it. So that's what she thinks.
Any other questions for John? John, thank you for everything you do. You are ready. You're doing a great job. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Well, that was retired. Back and forth, but it's important in some of these committees. A lot of these committees are where the rubber meets the road, and then it shows up into the town council without a lot of scrutiny. So that's why I just joined a lot of these committees, especially with the Fort Worth Village, to make sure I get an idea of what's happening. So it's part of the job.
You're a great voice for us. So thank you. We'll
Yep.
appreciate that. One last question real quick. That it's been in the paper, it's been on the news that the building across from the Cape Cod Times that they want to do is abandoned right now. They want to do a 4-story. Does the council have any say in that, or is that more like who's going to make the final?
Is it 307?
Yeah, it's a 4. They want to do the
Yeah.
4-story. They have it
on Ocean Street.
Yeah,
Ocean
Street, Main Street.
Yes, on the same side. There's a lot of back and forth about that. People in Hampshire are especially upset about that building. I'm on the housing subcommittee, and also the zoning subcommittee, zoning and regulatory subcommittee, and we're working on suggestions as to changes in the downtown zoning that has been put in place. Some of that is maybe we're going to go down and say 3 stories instead of 4. Okay, I think the one building down at the hotel across from 200 Main, I think that one's going up at 4. But I think 3 is a sort of problem. I think we're getting to a point where we might say, okay, well, let's like 3.5 story with some kind of architectural thing at the top, or maybe if somebody wants to have an outside garden or something. But it would set back and keep it from being looking at the canyon like 4 stories. I think that will come through the council at some point. I don't know how they'll react about that, but I think there's a lot of pushback in the 4 story.
There's a little setback in the plans too, right?
On the 4 stories, there's setback.
There is setback?
On the, what's already in place, there's a setback on 4 story.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these buildings. What we're saying is go to 3 stories and maybe give them a half. Say, for example, if they wanted to put a restaurant or something on top. I've seen this, you know, I don't know if half stories enough, but in a restaurant, they set it back. And a lot of places in the country do that, like Nashville's one of those where you stand on the building. But I think we're trying to cut it down, and also the zoning in different neighborhoods nearby are somewhat the same in some of those neighborhoods. I think we want to try to have it so that you have the highest in the center and then go down gradually. So that's still being discussed.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
And also the West Main corridor or something that's also coming.
That's
That is zoned like highway corridor zoning, which is something that allows a lot of leeway for large development and box stores and stuff. And I think that people in West Main are very concerned with that. One of the things they're planning on doing is moving the homeless shelter to 460 West Main, which is directly across from the Party Trees, which is the old Housing Assistance Corporation building. So I've heard good and bad about that. I've heard that they run a fairly tight ship, but the merchants in Hyannis have always wanted to move that out for obviously reasons. But now, of course, the people on West Main just basically moving one problem to another, and so that's something we got to keep an eye on.
That's all, they were saying that's zoned the same way as like 132.
Yeah, it's zoned like 132. So there is some talk about maybe looking at that zoning.
Rezoning it.
Yeah, saying this, we've already got 132. We've got all the big boxes up there and that kind of stuff. Why do we need it in West Main Street?
You know, that's an area that's almost, they're trying to be up and coming. They've got some good things going on in that part of town.
Yeah.
And, you know, as sad as the homeless crisis is, that would be a real setback, I think, for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's how they're feeling. I kind of have
Is it outgrowing? Is there a reason for a move?
I think the major reason is the downtown merchants have been yelling and screaming this for years. And they have whatever, I can't remember the name of the legislation that allows them to do that by right. Okay, because these are so hard to locate because nobody wants them. So they have, can't remember the name of the amendment.
The educational purpose one?
No, it's called something like some name amendment, and it's just as that they can decide where it goes,
right?
Regardless of public sentiment at that point, because they did that because nobody wants these things. So
Keep moving it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dover.
That's it.
Thanks again, John. Old business, LCP we've talked about. Just want to thank Bruce Cole for that
Absolutely.
letter that you put together, which was incredible. Had a very high impact. I talked to one of the counselors later, I'm not sure, but so one of the first times that the council they all voted for something that they didn't disagree on, which was pretty amazing. There's a little bit of discussion, but anyways, that letter had a huge impact for that vote. So
big impact.
Yeah,
I've had a number of people down say the same thing. So
very, very well done.
Nice job, Bruce.
Thank you. Okay, on to new business. Hector, you wanted to say something?
So just for this audience, one of my volunteer activities is I'm chair of the Financial Advisory Committee to the Town Council. And just wanted to flag a couple of things that are going on and will be going on in the future. One is, you might have heard that there's some budget cutting action going on in Washington. And there's some discussion about whether some of that is going to trickle down to the states. and to localities, counties and towns. There is, one of the, shall I say, the MOs in Washington is to punish states that aren't perceived to be in tune with the dominant Republican ideology in Washington. So for example, some of you may have read that the state of Maine, the governor spoke up at a White House meeting and there were some punitive actions launched against the state of Maine. Who knows whether they'll survive, but you know, we've got a governor here who could easily be in the gun sights of some of the folks in Washington, and so that may have trickle down effects with respect to federal money coming to the state, and a lot of the money that comes to towns is from the federal government is passed through from the state. So to the extent the state suffers, towns may suffer too. So it's just something to be alert to. It came up in a CPAC meeting a couple of weeks ago, and Mark Milnes, the finance director, said that he's sitting on the edge of his chair, you know, waiting, you know, for some negative news to come out. What John mentioned about the CWMP, so there's the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which is funded by the state, and that fund is available for municipalities to apply for advantageous funding for capital projects like sewers. And it's the advantage is very low interest rate, 0.5% to 1.5%. The second advantage is there's some of the loans have principal reduction up to 25%. So if Barnstable borrows $50 million for a project and carries through with the project up to 12.5 of that 50 million could be forgiven. So that it's very advantageous financing when you consider what going to the public bond markets where you pay 4 or 5%, and of course there's no principal forgiveness. So I think it's early days yet. As Mark Ells spoke at the last town council meeting, it's not clear to me, you know, I don't think there's any connection there with some of what's going on in Washington, although there may well be. But at any rate, it's something bears watching, as John said, because right now we have financing in place for the next several fiscal years for the sewer project. But after that, we're going to be looking to raise new capital for future projects. And if the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, if the terms aren't as advantageous, that will certainly have an impact on the town and on our capital budget. One other activity that we've been talking about at the committee has to do with the schools. So you may all well know that the schools have a number of capital needs. For example, the high school roof needs to be replaced. And there are some of the middle school and elementary schools have some capital needs as well. And there's the school committee has a subcommittee on facilities headed by Jen Cullum. And she is out now with the subcommittee floating some ideas to how to fund all these capital needs, which total over the next 10 years about $120 million. So if we may be worried about a Proposition 2.5 override, a debt override for the sewer project, there may also potentially be down the road, the town council will have to approve it, but a debt override to support the capital needs of the schools. For years, for decades, some of the school facilities have been allowed to atrophy, and they haven't been spending the money that they should have to keep the bathrooms and the locker rooms and some of the classrooms up to speed, and some of the mechanical infrastructure of the schools. So the piper is coming with a bill for that, and just stay tuned, but there's gonna be a lot of pressure on the town council to come up with funds to pay for the various capital projects, sewers and schools in this town, and it just bears watching. So I just thought I'd put that out there for people to remain aware of. It's wonky stuff, right? And, you know, a lot of us don't like to pay attention to numbers, but at the end of the day, as we've discussed in this group, Osterville contributes what, 35% of the town's property taxes?
That was 25.
Yes, we contribute way more than our fair share, so there will be, you know, proportionally more pressure on Osterville taxpayers if debt overrides are proposed. So just something to keep in mind and, you know, pay attention to what's going on at the town level.
What's the town's bond rating, Hector?
Pardon?
The town's bond rating?
Oh, we're AAA.
AAA, yeah.
We're AAA, so we can borrow it for, there's a bond issue coming out in May, and I think the forecast is 4 to 4.5%.
Yeah.
So we get very, very good rates. About, you know, it's not all that unusual to be AAA. About 30% of the municipalities in the state are AAA.
You have to be well managed, though.
Yeah, you absolutely do need to be well managed. So, so we do get very competitive rates in the bond market, but 4.5% is a lot more than 1.5% with 25% principal forgiveness. So,
What's our annual debt service now? Do you know?
you know, it's going up a lot.
Has it?
Yeah, it is going up because of the CWMP borrowings.
Got it.
So that's.
Does anyone have a good?
Right.
Well, thank you very much. Just to be aware.
That's,
Thanks, Hector. Any questions for Hector?
Yeah, Hector, it's my understanding that the repairs and maintenance of the schools is in their budget. Has been in their budgets, it's not a supplemental by the town, it's actually what's every year, but they don't seem to be
Right,
doing any maintenance.
but large capital projects like replacing the roof at the high school, that's $20 or $25 million.
Yeah.
So that's a capital item as opposed to a maintenance item.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's just a lot of pressure on the budget. So a lot of the school facilities have been allowed to, you know, not in a major way, but deteriorate somewhat. And there are things like the air conditioning and the heating systems. Air quality in schools is a safety issue. So at some point you can't put that off anymore. So there are pressures coming, and Betty Lutke is the liaison for the CPAC. She took over for Craig Tanish when he became president of the council, and Betty just asks a lot of great questions. She sweats the details, and when Jen Collins' subcommittee, the facilities subcommittee of the school board asked to meet with us 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's the first time in my 7 years on this committee that another committee of the town met with us. And it's because Jen Cullum and her committee, they're starting to try to build momentum for, among other things, the construction of a new school in Hyannis to replace two of the schools there. They would consolidate 2 of the older schools into 1, and that would be another pressure on the town council and on our capital budget. So
the situation at West Elementary is pretty dire as well, with air quality, the mold issue.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'll keep you all posted as I learn more.
Thank you, Hector. That was very informative. I like it. The Emmys.
Yeah.
On more new business, just real quick on CON meeting and tomorrow night. Avangrid once again is not going to be there. There's also supposed to be a presentation by a company that supplies the insulation for the pipes. They're not ready. We just think with everything going on, we just think they're backpedaling again. But Again, the comm meeting is gonna be at the fire station, but it's really kind of not a non-event, it's just gonna be a regular meeting, but to say there's nowhere to grid there. And as Suzanne can tell you that, maybe make a brief statement about the lightning strike on
Yeah,
right.
same one, you know, and so I've been doing my research and I found out that should an intact blade be struck by lightning, the inside of the blade, the air inside the blade could reach as much as 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit in that instant. And that's what causes blades to explode. So even though this lightning strike hit the stub of a broken blade, I think it's something we all have to think about. Like they're putting 100 of those things south of Martha's Vineyard, and they are going to be struck by lightning. So I've just learned a lot about lightning protection systems too. And the Avangrid came out and said, we're going to put lightning protection systems on, so no one worry. What happens is the lightning gets, put into the ocean. The electricity rather is sent into the ocean on a lightning protection system from an ocean wind turbine. So I don't think the whale's gonna like that very much. And the whole thing is just, the more that comes out, the more the arguments grow against continuing to do it this way. I'm a big proponent of small nuclear reactors as the future, because they're not like the old huge power things, the huge plants. I think that's what's going to power our future. But the state, there's grumblings at the state that I've never heard before. Mariano came out and said, "Oh, Trump just blew the whole thing up." So, I'm like, that's a big statement from the Speaker of the House. And Hector knows this. They organized a meeting on March 26th up in Boston called Power Outage or something like that. What's the name of it? So it's the Secretary of EE&A, the one who's trying to redo all the Article 97 regulations. She's going to be the keynote speaker. And they're calling it power shortage or power outage. And the whole thing is, now that, Trump is in office and is really kind of throwing, a monkey wrench into the offshore wind stuff, what are we going to do? So to me, that means that the state might be going, maybe this whole thing needs to be rethought. Maura Haley, she passed through a $35 million tax credit for offshore wind a few months ago. And on X, I get a little sarcastic on X, but I'm like, we need an accounting. How much money are you putting into offshore wind? How much, what's the total here that the state has spent on this industry? Because I think it's about $200 million. So that's all I'll say right now. It's funny because with Trump in office, the whole thing has kind of been elevated to a national concern rather than, just thinking about trying to get our town council to take the measure they took or to try to talk the state into sanity. It's really been about learning about this new, there's been a climate change offshore wind of the type. So, but it's interesting right now. And I just hope that we go in a different direction. And by the way, South Coast Wind pulled out. They were the ones, Nantucket folks on Nantucket, they were just up in arms because they wanted, to do another community, what do they call it? That one, the friendly community agreement or something like that.
Yeah.
And not host community like Barnstable, but good neighbor agreement. And then they said, you know what, the heck with it. We're pulling the plug on this project for 4 years, which is their way of saying, while Trump's in office, we're not going to try to build this thing south of Nantucket, because that would have been another 100 turbines on top of all the ones for Vineyard Wind and New England Wind 1 and New England Wind 2. And those turbines were planned to be 1,100 feet tall. So the ones that Vineyard Wind is building are about 890 feet tall. And that's one of the ones that got hit by lightning. So it's just not, it's not good. So anyway, it's big happenings, lots to keep our, our mind on and follow. But Hector's great at it, part of SGDB. Pete's on SGDB, and we're all just very vigilant. We meet every single week to keep on top of everything and advocate.
So the thing to know about these companies is they take the long view. So the company that canceled, was it South Coast for 4 years, or they took a charge and said, we're not going to try to build it for 4 years. When people say to me, "Oh, is Dowsett safe?" I say we're gonna be fighting these things for years.
For years.
Because, you know, these companies, these power companies have 10 and 20-year planning cycles. So what's 3 or 4 years to wait, if they have to wait? So, we cannot be complacent.
So if your grandchildren would like to learn about, they can carry the torch.
Like in a playground, but then-
Yeah, it's like, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Like getting a playground put in. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, 20-year cycles.
Susanna, thank you. Quick question on, the news the last couple of weeks has been the charges from the gas company, the crazy charges going on. When is the rates, the new rates gonna be announced from?
Well, they're done negotiating by the end of this month, and they're saying that they will be made public on May 9th. So,
it's
May 9th, but I'm thinking that, it's funny, because after South Coast Wind pulled out, there was an announcement that we're still negotiating with the state to sell the electricity from South Coast Wind, even though they're not building until, for another 4 years. And to me, that sounds like the state's going, what the heck, we're negotiating a contract that won't even, be effective for until 6 years from now, because it would take them 2 years to build the thing. So, I don't know, it's all up in the air, it's just crazy.
I would anticipate more delays.
Yeah, I agree, they're gonna kick the can down the road again.
Yeah, because you know that Avangrid and Iberdrola, their parent company, they're weighing their options now. They're watching what the other big European players are doing, Shell, and some of the others, and South Coast's parent companies, are saying, hey, let's back off for now. It would not surprise me to have Avangrid back off on New England Wind 1, the Park City Wind project, and the Dowses project for now.
Yeah, the other
But
one.
that doesn't mean the fight is over.
The other one that backed out was Vineyard Wind 2, which was, they were working with the people of Westport to land at Horseneck Beach, which is a state beach. So they would have faced a lot less agita in that community. The state would have said absolutely, but they decided they're going to New London, right? And so with those cables moving westward, we were actually talking about the idea that the Dowses Beach cables would move to the Westport landing, which is something they talked about in their construction and operations plan.
It's a noticed alternative.
Yeah, it's a noticed alternative.
Just like Baby Beach is a noticed alternative.
Exactly, but I think moving to Westport would be far preferable for them, because all these cables, like, they don't want to cross each other. So with those moving to New London, these might, and of course, the people in Westport, I told my friend there, I said, don't rest on your laurels. None of us are safe.
Right.
None of us are safe.
Great, thank you, Suzanne, for that.
Oh,
for the
thank you,
update
Pete.
And all that you do, really appreciate it. You all do.
It's fun. You're having fun. It's fun.
Keep busy.
Right. Bill, did you have any comments tonight?
No, Bruce and I talked about the Smith Fund, and Bruce asked if he would take a little break, is working on other things, and he's going to take the lead for us on that when he has an opportunity. So I'm there to support him, but he's got some good ideas, and so we'll be doing it in the future. But so that's where we are at that.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any other new business?
I just want to mention one thing. First of all, as was mentioned, the scholarship application is out.
Yeah.
A little bit late this year. Well, I'll take full responsibility for that. So I can put a letter in my file. But I'd like to thank Nancy for helping me get that out. So we're out there. And what I'd like to do is solicit for a committee. We don't have to necessarily have the volunteers tonight, but I think a committee of 5 would be a good number for us to work with. And its deadline is May 2, Friday, and what I would propose is they'll come in to me, and then I'll circulate them to the committee that night, that weekend, and then we can maybe have a meeting that I could schedule now, or, you know, as soon as we have a committee together for the May 5 or May 6, somewhere in there. Make the decision and then we can get the information out, okay?
Chuck, I'll be happy to go back on. I had to come off because I had a college, high school senior.
Okay, all right, okay.
Hold myself.
Okay, great, that's great.
Chuck, I'd love to be on it. My doctorate's in education. I used to oversee financial aid at one of the public universities. So it's kind of
Very good.
getting back into that. I'd love to do it.
Okay, excellent, all right, two. All right, excellent, okay, sure.
I did it last time, Susie was gonna take it.
Was that?
I did the last time.
Okay. And
Doc,
we
could
also
you-
take civilians too, we take civilians, so,
Ah,
anyone who's, you know, not a board member wants to be, and if you know of anyone, certainly welcome.
How many scholarships do we fund?
We generally have, well, we give out one, but, it's $1,500, but the last 2 years, we have talk about overrides, we've done an override, and, we've actually awarded 2, scholarships.
why not?
$1,500, just one shot deal, it's not $1,500.
Not one shot.
It's split between the OVA and the OVPA.
Right.
So each contributes.
Yeah. So last year, for example, we got the OVPA to give us another 1,500, we threw in 1,500. So we're able to award 2.
And does the money for this come out of this Robert Smith fund?
Correct.
Was there a plan afoot to set up a committee about the Robert Smith fund to talk about that?
That's what they're working on.
We're trying, I got waylaid by everything that's going on in town, let's say, so writing letters on behalf of the. But Bill and I, are trying to come up with a document to start a committee.
Okay.
We have, you know, we pretty much have something drafted, but, you know, we weren't able to get to it for the meeting. So, you'll know when we're gonna talk about it, as it'll be on.
Chuck, thank you. You've been doing for the scholarship, you've been doing it for a long time. How long?
10 years more, maybe.
It's a lot. I said that's, everyone appreciates that.
Well, again, I have to thank Nancy for inspiring me. She kept on me. And you also helped me get them out to the other beach stadiums.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was great.
Thank you for responding so quickly.
Sorry?
You responded really quickly, so thank you.
I did, yeah, eventually. So I'm kind of like, we got right on here.
Thank you.
Chuck,
Okay.
could you give us an 8.5 by 11 description on how people can apply for that fund? Just send that in each member of the committee. You know, so that, for example, that we might display it at a church or two in the village.
I'm sorry, Bill. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, could you just give us the information on how a applicant can apply directly to the committee?
Sure, so the application is online, on the website.
Okay.
And it also is available, we distribute it to, schools in the area that we think, have potential for Osterville residents. So, Barnstable High School, obviously, Sturgis, Cape Cod Academy, Falmouth Academy, Tabor, Bishop Stang, which is in the area.
John Paul.
John Paul?
John Paul, yeah, we sent John Paul as well.
Does the applicant have to be an Osterville?
Osterville resident or the child of a member of the OVPA, and the member
Good.
must be a direct member. I put on the application. In other words, you can't, if Osterville Hardware is a member of the OVPA, you work for Osterville Hardware, that doesn't qualify your child, unfortunately, to apply for the scholarship unless unless you reside in Osterville. But if you, you know, if it's, Joe Jones Company and Joe Jones is a member, his child is eligible.
Thanks, Bill. And real quick, Mark, on the nomination committee, we need to redo do that or to?
We do.
Yeah.
So used to John reminding me.
You just remind me.
Thanks for the reminder.
I passed it on.
I'll get on it. I'll have something for next meeting.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
March already.
Okay, public comment.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, speak up. Great work.
Job well done.
Would anybody like to throw their hat in the ring?
Dr. Conley, we got the time right now.
Nancy?
So.
Where are the speed bumps?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, talking about capital expense, elevated, what do they call them? I don't know, nicer name.
Crosswalks?
Elevated crosswalks.
Elevated, incredibly expensive.
They're just gonna stamp them, I guess, right? They look like bricks.
I'll ask the DPW chair.
Yeah, Griffin.
Welcome in. When you say that, right?
Yeah. So
Last time that fellow was here, he said it'd take about a 2-year study to see how the water was gonna flow around those speed bumps before they could actually install them. But they might be able to get them installed by 2027 or something.
You know, it's pretty good with the rain. It was discouraging, I will say that. When I asked them myself, how come this takes so long? I think they just said that the engineering, it's the process, but to get that to a point, but it seems like Austin was always, has stuff. But that was his thing, they said, had to study how the water was gonna flow on. I guess they had problems, I don't know, with the Mills or Barnstable where they had water back up behind it, but I know, it's just like, it should be way past that.
How is the playground? What's going on with that?
I don't know, it's my grandkids now. I started when my kids were 2 and 3, they're 17 and 18.
I don't know how many times I've talked about this, but it's on schedule for hopefully maybe breaking ground this fall or early spring next year. And all the equipment has been chosen. They have to do some underground work and that kind of stuff. But and they said it's still on schedule. So we have the funding for it, and so.
What did they say, fall of 26, right?
Fall of 26, if not a little bit earlier. So we might start there this fall, but it depends on how they get their things together.
Well, what is the hole? Why isn't it happening?
Drainage.
You said they have the money, they have the equipment figured out.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Everything just takes forever.
It takes forever in this town.
And I don't know why. And there's 3 other playgrounds waiting to go in.
Yeah.
Centerville and there.
Yeah,
So
really.
we're still on the schedule that they told us. I have it here somewhere. It says, I have the line diagram if I can find it, but that might be. It's right. Read it. Best case scenario is the start of construction at the end of first quarter next year.
Yeah, so we
Okay. Yeah, fall 26.
Well,
Or maybe a
the
little.
people in charge, so what are they doing here?
What's that?
I said, the people in charge of getting these playgrounds up, what are they doing every day? Maybe they need to be eliminated, from
5 bullet points.
cleansing.
I'm already trying to eliminate a few people, but.
I mean, they pay salaries for the roof, the school roofs.
It's easier birth and babies, huh, Doc?
They come in 9 months,
Yeah.
whether they like it or not, it's coming up.
I got it, since we're talking projects in Osterville, I'd like to go on the record. I think this whole thing about East Bay Road should be indefinitely postponed while the whole Avangrid matter is not settled. To go in there, make all these changes to East Bay Road, change the character of that whole part of town, which I find very, what would the word be? Charming. And make it, flow this way and that way, and really impact the folks on Wayano, in my opinion, in a way that they don't probably want to be impacted. I just think that whole thing should be put on the back
I mean,
burner.
the sidewalk.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Slash.
And-
Cone
Yeah,
down the middle.
yeah, putting cones and changing the traffic pattern and it's just doesn't make any sense to me. I'd rather they concentrated on traffic, calming measures and getting this darn playground in and, just forget that East Bay Road thing for now. Auburn could come along and force their hand and the whole thing would be ripped up anyway. Think about it.
Well, right now, there's three scenarios.
Yeah,
Sidewalk on one side, sidewalk on another side, and then just closing one of the lanes down, having one way coming in from Main Street into town.
Mhm.
From that direction onto East Bay, and then exiting on on Weano. Okay, you can't have it the other way because the line for the beach queues up on Weano. So you have one lane dedicated to just pedestrians, okay? And there's, I think, the sidewalks, I think we talked about this, I talked about this a couple of times with the Griffin Road and a couple of other people. And the DPW director. There's now so many things in the roadway, not the roadway, but the setback.
the layout,
layout.
yeah, the trees.
That are trees, stone walls, all kinds of stuff.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure that would probably be better to do it, and it's only paint. Okay, so this is the cheapest way by far to do it. So if we decided to go back one way and they decided to do something else, well, we
Yeah.
just have to repaint it. And it's not gonna cost a fortune to do.
Well, the only thing is you're forcing all the traffic
Yeah.
to go one way. Now it disperses, goes both ways.
Yeah.
You either go left or right, and now it's all going to go down.
Yeah.
Either East Bay or Weano, depending on what they do, and that doesn't seem fair to me to the folks who own on those streets, but that's just me, and I just think it's not the time to be messing with East Bay Road the way they want to.
Well, they just started talking about it last year, so we got about 20 years.
Think you're all set.
Right, good point.
Nothing to worry about.
The guy with the spray paint. Not around.
Spray paint's gonna take a long time. All right, I'm sorry, I just had to say that because I think the traffic calming is so important.
Yeah. We don't have traffic calming. It's like, so.
Well, we should, right?
We should,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of things we should have, but we don't.
Yeah.
Like speed bumps
Yeah,
and the like, so, I just think that if we're gonna go with that's the best solution.
Yeah.
Cause I had supposedly one person called up about sidewalk and their side of the street was like over my dead body.
right.
And, so it'll be a real Donnybrook to do it, but there is so much travel during the summer. And it's gonna be, knock on wood that nobody gets hurt down.
So that's true, but,
Yeah, I know, and so that'd be one of the solutions. And I think we talked about this for a number of years. Something needs to be done because there is such walking traffic now. So
people need to
Michelle.
slow down.
yeah, well, like we just talked about that.
I know.
You get these traffic mitigation speed traps. They only go one place at one time, so they go move here, they move there, and Morrison's Mills, the Barnstable Village, so you get them like once a month and a half type of thing. So I was on the phone last summer because there's a number of complaints on Main Street from Centerville coming in that area.
Oh, yeah.
Busy and fast.
What about, can they make those $7,000 flashing signs give out tickets? Like they do on the bridges and.
Photo enforcement.
No.
Won't do photo enforcement.
Well, they're thinking about doing that and talking about it on the lights. I've heard very good and bad, and I'm more vegetarian of that, but whatever people want. But that gets to be where they're gonna nail you for everything. And
I got caught speeding in Arizona 15 minutes apart on the same highway. I got 2 tickets.
From an officer?
From photo enforcement. And they actually, in Arizona, I was so angry, I wrote to the governor. But I said, how did I know? I got a ticket, and then 15 minutes later, I got another ticket on the same highway without stopping. And then the week after I paid the tickets, they actually took all the photo enforcement down in Arizona. Because people, just bought it.
Too many,
Yeah.
Well, there's a big difference between the western states and this state. I lived out west.
Yeah.
And they had 55-mile-an-hour place, all over the United States for that period of
Yeah, I
time.
was going 100.
And you've got miles and miles of open. We should have got through it. Open, now you should have got off your lead foot after the first one.
All right, sorry.
Send you told them now.
Yeah, they do send
I
it to
got
us.
one, I got one from Italy.
You did? Italy?
Yeah, they catch you out of Italy.
I got one in New Zealand, 20 years ago, 20 years ago.
Wow.
My friend.
Bad people on this,
But they do it, they do it there.
Yeah, any other public comment?
Seeing
Seeing none, next meeting date is April
April
1st, and make a motion, get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.